In the depths of the night, when the darkness covers and the silence becomes heavy, the stories we are about to tell below are not products of imagination, but haunting experiences, told engraved in the memories of survivors. From forgotten houses where ghosts linger among the decaying walls, to encounters with mysterious forces and moments of inexplicable terror, these stories will guide you into a world of extreme fear and secrets hidden in darkness. Prepare yourself, because these stories are not just fragments of nightmares, but real things that happened, events that you will never forget. Story 1. Memories of the Night, Exploring the Mysterious House. I'll never forget that night when my brother Luke and I decided to sneak out to explore a rumored haunted house in our neighborhood. At that time, I was only 10 years old, and Luke was only 12. That night, when our parents told us to go to bed early, we secretly sneaked out of the room. Luke's room was on the first floor, and we just had to climb out through the window. Luckily, we didn't need to climb very high. We brought along a few handheld flashlights, the hand-operated type, which required constant pressing of a small trigger to make the light inside the lens light up. Those flashlights are quite noisy, but at this time they are very useful. We walked out of the house, walked down the block, and within 2 minutes, we were at that house. The house, rumored to be haunted, became the talk of all the children and teenagers in the neighborhood. From the scary stories to the images of the house with its ancient design, scary isolation and broken windows and rotting wood, it all creates a perfect setting for a horror movie. Weird. We circled to the backyard, filled with the curiosity and confidence of fearless children. But as I approached the back door, I felt a cold thrill. The door was locked, as I expected, which made me feel a little relieved to be able to return home. But Luke makes a shocking move. He quickly grabbed a wooden plank lying on the grass and began smashing the chipped window to unlock it, then pulled it out completely. We jumped inside and immediately turned on the flashlights, but as soon as we entered, we both noticed something strange. The temperature in the house was 90 degrees, which was strange because it was a night. September, mid-70s. There was no sign of vandalism or graffiti, just an empty space with a few old pieces of furniture, clearly not worth bringing. It seemed like we were the first people to enter this house in a long time, or at least from the back. We continued upstairs from the small work area. Even though the flashlight was noisy, we didn't notice until a small crack from the floorboard above made us both jump. I pulled Luke back, but he just laughed and told me not to worry. It was just the noise of the old house. However, I couldn't help the rising feeling of panic. The cracking sound rang out again from above. Luke started climbing the stairs and I couldn't leave him alone, so I followed. Reaching the upper floor, we saw a door leading to a room directly above us. I begged him not to open that door, but Luke, in his false confidence, walked up to the doorknob. He kept the noisy flashlight on and pressed his ear to the door to listen for something. That moment made my heart stop as I heard a single explosion ring out from the other side of the door. It was the sound of a powerful force hitting the door that made Luke stumble, hit the wall, and cover his ears in pain. We dropped our flashlights and ran like crazy out the back door, heading back home as fast as we could. We were so loud that our parents discovered us and asked what happened. However, they didn't care and just banned us from going out for a week. 2 nights later, I woke up to the sound of something coming from outside the window, bright light shining in through the slightly open curtains. My heart sank when I realized it was the spinning sound of the flashlight we had left behind. I stood up and looked out the window, but only saw complete darkness. As the light went out, I tried to convince myself that everything was just a bad dream. But when I woke up the next morning, everything was as clear as an unfinished nightmare. Story 2: A Visit to the Restroom and Mysterious Whispers. Recently, a scary event happened to me while I was in my first year at an old university famous for paranormal activities and ghostly apparitions. My school has 4 ancient buildings, and my classroom is in the area that is said to be the most haunted. One afternoon, just before 5, as the sunlight began to fade and darkness began to cover the campus, something unforgettable happened. A friend of mine, who needed to use the restroom, invited me along. She had just attended a stressful study session and needed some time to relax. I agreed, not because I needed to go to the bathroom, but to get a chance to rest from the stress of the movie lesson she'd been thrust into. We headed to the restroom area located in one of the oldest buildings on campus. This restroom is located downstairs, and when we arrived, I felt a cold wind from the hallway, which seemed colder than the weather outside. She went into one of the bathroom stalls and closed the door while I waited outside. While she was in there, I felt the stillness of the surrounding area, a feeling as if the air had frozen solid, leaving only the sound of occasional footsteps in the distance. As time passed, I began to feel worried because it seemed to take her longer than I anticipated. With a rising sense of nervousness, I decided to return to class without telling her. As soon as I sat down at my desk, I saw her rushing into the classroom, her face pale and full of worry. She immediately told me that, while in the bathroom, she heard the sink turn on like someone turned on the faucet. She thought it was me trying to play a prank, but when she opened the door, she saw no one but herself. She stepped outside and looked down into the space between the bathroom stalls, but didn't see any shoes or feet. However, the sounds of feminine whispers and strange humming from the bathroom stall next door continued to echo. The whisper was inaudible, just a soft, dark sound, like a whisper from the dark regions of the soul. She felt a cold rush over her, and her fear grew as she heard noises like someone moving in that bathroom stall. Finally, unable to bear the feeling of fear, she quickly left the bathroom without any explanation and did not dare to return. We returned to class, but the obsession from the incident still did not let me go. My mind kept returning to the strange sights and sounds my friend had experienced. After leaving class, we chatted with one of the janitors and learned that no one should go to the bathroom after 5 p.m., as there is a female ghost known to live in the bathroom stalls. This ghost is said to be that of a woman who mysteriously died in this area a long time ago. Stories about ghosts became part of campus lore, and seniors, who had heard more stories, advised us to stay away from the restrooms after scheduled hours. We, freshmen, couldn't help but feel creepy and decided to never dare to step into the bathroom after the designated time. Although I cannot confirm whether the claims about ghosts are true or false, what my friend and I experienced remains an unexplained mystery. Every time I think about that incident, I feel an indescribable horror, as if the darkness and strange sounds were still following us. These stories and events have made the presence of the mysterious in the school become more and more terrifying. Story 3. Meeting with a mysterious man in Kyoto. A few months ago, while I was serving in Japan as a missionary for the Mormon Church, I experienced an extremely frightening event. I have lived in Japan for 2 years, and the time to return home is drawing near. I am in Kyoto, an ancient and bustling city that I have dreamed of exploring. That night, with our companion, we continued our mission, knocking on every apartment door, looking for people who might be interested in learning about Christ. As it got late, we decided to try knocking on the door of a nearby apartment building. In the Japanese apartment system, there are 3 main types: super luxury suites, normal apartments with 4 to 5 rooms, and slums. The apartment we are looking for is the second type, located on the 2nd floor of the building. When knocking on the door, a middle-aged man opened the door wearing old clothes, with a shy smile on his face. We introduced ourselves and asked him if he wanted to learn about our beliefs. Instead of answering directly, he invited us inside, not a bad sign. Upon entering the apartment, we were immediately overwhelmed by a strong stench. The apartment is small and dirty, with a narrow entrance, a door on the left leading to the bathroom, a small kitchen on the right, and a small multi-purpose room with an old TV, a kneeling table, and a bed. This apartment didn't seem to have been taken care of much, and everything showed signs of disarray and squalor. Anxiety began to rise inside me as I realized that this might be an unsafe situation. The man sat us down on either side of the table and began babbling about his hatred of Christians and his intentions to destroy them. This made me and my companion feel stressed and worried. However, what was even scarier was that he was extremely drunk, drinking 10 times his weight in alcohol. We can only pray and hope that he does not realize who we are and does not understand what he is saying. After a while, the man told us that he was going to reveal a secret to us and asked us not to tell anyone. He took out an old box from under the bed, opened it, and revealed thousands of dollars worth of Japanese yen. We knew immediately that this was no ordinary money. It is valuable and genuine because we have inspected it. Then we realized that he might be an illegal drug lord working with the Yakuza, the famous Japanese mafia group. We felt an extreme fear as we realized that if this man realized what he had just done and showed us this money, he might kill us or at least make us do it. Hostage. My companion and I feared for our lives and tried to find an excuse to leave the apartment, but he wouldn't let us go. He continued to ramble about unrelated topics and expressed his hatred for Christianity. We tried to explain and clarify our position, but reasoning with a drunk drug lord is not easy. Finally, the situation became so tense that we almost had to run away. As we stood up saying we were leaving, he stood up too and started reaching for something in the box. We never saw what it was because as soon as the door closed, we hurried out of the apartment and quickly returned home. The feeling of fear was beyond words at the thought that the man might come to his senses and discover that he had revealed his dark secret to 2 Christian missionaries from America. If he hadn't been drunk, we might not be alive to tell this story. Story 4: Black Shadows at the Window. When I was 15 years old, I was home alone one night and experienced an event so terrifying that it still makes me feel creepy when I think about it. My bedroom was on the first floor, right next to the living room, and that night I was engrossed in playing video games in my bed. All was peaceful until a strange sound began to echo from the living room. It took me a moment to realize that it was a steady tapping sound on the window. These sounds make me feel uneasy. I decided to get up and check. Stepping out of the room, I walked through the dark living room and opened the front door to check the bushes by the window, where I thought someone might be standing outside. But there was no one. An uneasy feeling arose within me, but I returned to my room and continued playing the game. Not long after, the knocking sound rang out again, this time clearer and closer. I ran barefoot to the front door again, ready to confront the prankster. I looked in the bushes and around the area but still saw nothing. There was no sign of anyone in my sight. Deciding not to pay attention to these sounds, I returned to my room. But as soon as I entered the room, the knocking sound continued, this time closer and scarier than ever. I turned around and ran to the window, looking for someone, but outside it was still pitch black. There was no one. As I bent down, a cold and strange feeling ran through my body as I saw a small dark figure sitting right next to the window, as if it had been there all along. A feeling of fear filled my mind. I went back to the room, quickly closed the door and locked it, my whole body trembling. I crawled under the bed and tried to call my father, but fear made it difficult for me to speak clearly. The knocking on the glass door continued from outside, making my anxiety unbearable. Finally, I decided to call my dad again and explain the situation. He answered calmly, but it seemed like he didn't believe me, thinking I was imagining things. He advised me not to call the police immediately, but to just wait. Dad promised to come right away and told me to wait in the room. About 5 minutes later, the knocking stopped, but my anxiety did not disappear. Another 10 minutes passed and the police arrived. They checked around the house, but did not find any signs of intrusion. All doors are locked, windows are closed. Still, the scary shadow I saw at the window still haunted me, and the eerie silence after it ended only made everything even more mysterious and scary. From then on, I never saw or heard anything related to that incident again. But the image of the shadow and the knocking on the door are always scary, indelible memories in my mind. The eerie silence and the mystery of the unexplained sounds still give me chills every time I think about that night. As the light of a new day dawns and the scary figures in the story gradually recede into the past, the impressions they left behind will still haunt your mind. Although you may try to explain and find logic in these events, you cannot deny that fear and mystery are still present in your every breath. These stories, in their honesty and darkness, remind us that there are mysteries that can never be solved and events that reason cannot explain. When night falls again, and you feel the cold creeping into your soul, remember that in the darkness, there are things that cannot be understood and stories that never end.